Hey sketchy friends, I'm Taria. This is my YouTube channel, Taria's Sketchy Adventures, where I share my sketchbook explorations with you. I also run a blog called urbansketchingworld.com, and I have a book coming out soon with a US publisher called The Beginner's Guide to Urban Sketching. In this video, I want to show you a quick and loose way to capture a reasonably cluttered, complex scene. The first step is to simplify the scene in our minds, and we can do this by firstly deciding what the focus is. In this case, I can't help but focus on the town hall. It's absolutely beautiful. For me, it's the sole purpose of why I wanted to sit and sketch in this square. By the way, this was one of the sketching locations during the Urban Sketching Symposium in Auckland, held in April 2023. This is a photo I took, and you are welcome to download it and sketch from it to practice the concepts we cover in this video. If you want more tutorials and demos like this, don't forget to check out my monthly membership program. The link is in the description below. Okay, so let me show you on the screen here what I personally want to include in my sketch. So the town hall is pretty important to me, and I definitely want that to be the focus of my sketch. And then I think this modern office block is quite interesting. I really like to include new modern buildings alongside old buildings when I'm sketching in a city. I just really love scenes that include those two things. I think it offers a nice bit of storytelling. But I think we're going to make that office building very subtle in the background, and I'll show you exactly how I do that later on in this video. And then I think we'll probably end up scribbling in a few people here and there just to give a bit of context, show it's a public place, and show, there's a lot of people around and that kind of thing. And then I also really like including fairly mundane street furniture in my sketches as well. So I really do love this kind of post here with these speakers on, cameras, lights, that kind of thing. So I'm a big fan of that. And I think it's going to be a good compositional device as well. The emphasis on this concept is quick. For me, that means sketching something like this scene in under an hour from start to finish, ideally 45 minutes. Now, that is not long to get everything we want in this scene, including drawing and painting time. So I'm thinking as though I'm on location, so that's why I'm calling this as an urban sketching tutorial, because I want you to take these things that we cover in this video and apply it to your urban sketching. But by all means, practice these concepts from photos as well, because it means when you do get out on location, you're going to be more confident to have a go at this kind of technique if it's something that you're interested in doing. Okay, let's start off. We have not got time for pencil shapes, and so I'm going straight in with ink, and I start by marking the top and the bottom of where I want my building to go on the page. This will just help me try and stay within those lines so that I don't draw off of the page. For those that are interested, I'm using a Platinum Preppy fountain pen. I just bought it. It cost under $7 US, and I love it already. I bought the converter too that goes inside, which actually was more expensive than the pen, incidentally, and I've filled it with platinum carbon ink. And I just find the line weight on this pen is absolutely perfect. It's really comfy to draw with, and yeah, I'm just a big fan. So there's no time for being precious over wrong lines here. You just have to go with the flow. This does take a bit of confidence, mainly confidence that it will turn out all right in the end. You just have to keep going with it. My main concern at this point is just trying to keep the scale right so that I don't end up drawing off the page. And that's exactly why I've marked the top and the bottom of the building on the page, but this doesn't always stop me from drawing at the wrong scale, to be honest. If I was taking a little more time and it was a concern, I would draw the big shapes in pencil first just to make sure it all fits. And I do often do that both when I'm on location and also drawing from photos. But it does save a lot of time if you just go straight in with ink. And when we're doing this kind of style where I'm not trying to be precise or graphic or anything like that, I just want to be loose and interpretive, then it's just pays just to go straight in with ink. And notice how I'm being quite scribbly with the architectural details. And that, in my mind, is what sketching loosely is all about. You're indicating things, you're not drawing them precisely. So I am going to speed this video up a little bit just so you're not here watching me draw forever because I do want to get on to the watercolour part and obviously adding some shadows and some depth as well. So the whole time I'm drawing this, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm keeping my eye on the scale and that by the time I get to that bottom dot, I would have fit everything in. And again, this just takes a little bit of practice. Just keep looking at your scene, or in this case, look at your photo and just keep judging how much you've got left. Here on the page, I'm about halfway between my dots. So I'm looking at my photo and I'm just trying to see, okay, am I halfway through drawing the building? And to my eye, I think I am. I think it's going okay. So notice I'm holding the pen back a little way back from the nib, and this just allows me to be a little bit looser as well, rather than holding it much closer to the nib where, you know, you might if you were writing something. And it also allows me to draw with more of my arm, so I'm not drawing with my fingers or even my wrist, especially when I'm doing some longer flowing lines. I'm trying to move my whole arm from my elbow down to my fingers. By the way, this is a Hahnemuhle Nostalgie sketchbook. It's the A4 version, and it is got 190 GSM weight paper, I think, and it's super white and smooth, very, very smooth. So really, really nice for drawing in. It does handle watercolor totally fine. If you were more interested in doing heavier watercolor and watercolor mixes and stuff like that, I'd probably go for a watercolor paper, but for a day-to-day sketchbook in which you want to use watercolor, this does work totally fine, and I quite like it, and I would definitely get another one for just daily drawing and stuff like that. So as I was drawing, you'll notice I have scribbled in a few people, and I'm just keeping them very simple. The main thing with adding people to your scene like this is no matter how far or close they are from you, just make sure that their heads are on the same horizontal line, so the same horizon line. So even if they're in the distance, their heads will still be on the same line as the people that are closer to you, but the people closer to you will have bigger heads and the people further away will have smaller heads, smaller bodies, that kind of thing. So it's just a quick way to show people and show them in depth. Obviously this changes if you're looking uphill or downhill, but if you're looking at a fairly flat scene, then that's how that will work. There are loads of videos on YouTube about drawing people, adding people in a simple way like this to your scene, so you can go and check them out. If you're interested in drawing people as the main subject of your scene, then I have a couple of videos on that, and I also have a website called peoplesketching.com, which is basically just a video reference library of people going about their business that you can practice sketching people in motion from. So that's peoplesketching.com. And now I'm putting in my mundane street post with the speakers on, and I'm even simplifying this as well. So I'm just putting a few of I assume they're speakers here on the post, and I'll just add a couple of lights on the top, but otherwise I'm just keeping it relatively simple. I felt like I spent more time drawing the street post with the lights on it than I did with the town hall, but that's fine. And notice with the town hall that I've just drawn the main tower and a little bit further right of that, and then I've just trailed off. I just trailed the sketch off, and it is totally fine to do that. That is part of this kind of style. You do not need to draw everything, and the things that you do draw can just be an indication of what you're seeing. That doesn't need to be literal or exact or precise. That is the way you're going to get a quick, loose sketch. You cannot draw something like this in 15 minutes like we're doing here. I know I've sped it up, but it probably was about 15 minutes that I drew this in, 15, 20 minutes. You can't do that if you want to be really precise and get everything in the exact place and draw all of the details. It's just impossible. For doing a really detailed literal sketch of something like this, you're probably looking at spending 2 to 3 hours on it. That's totally fine. You can do that, but this, I just wanted to show you how you might capture something quite quickly, as an urban sketcher might if they've only got a limited amount of time, and this is my way of showing how to do that. So that's it for the ink sketch. Make sure, especially if you're using a fountain pen, make sure you let the ink dry sufficiently before adding watercolour. With this being quite a smooth paper, I find that fountain pen ink doesn't dry quite as quickly as it does on textured paper. So just be careful, leave it for a few minutes, make sure it's dry, then you can throw on your watercolour, which is literally what I'm doing here. I've got a big brush, well, biggish, number 10, a Skoda Reserva. You don't need a fancy brush like this, by the way, just any brush. It's a round number 10 brush, and I've got a bit of Indian gold on my brush. That's just the colour that I happen to have in my palette. If I had a yellow ochre or something like that, I might use that, but I don't have that kind of thing in my palette. And I think I've just dabbed in a little bit of quinacridone rose as well, and I'm saying probably, I have dabbed in a little bit of light brown as well, which in my particular set is raw umber, but just to give it a bit of colour variation. So whatever colours you've got in your set, like a yellow ochre, a brown, some kind of pink, you can just dab in those colours just to make it look a bit more visually interesting, especially in a loose scene like this. You can be really playful with the watercolour. The bottom of the building is like kind of this cool green kind of colour, so I've just added that in, just trying to paint around the heads of the people, but again, in this style, you don't have to be too precise. And I've trailed it off on the right hand side into the white of the paper. And now I'm mixing up Moonglow just because it's a colour I've got recently and I'm quite obsessed with it, as I know a lot of people are. This is Daniel Smith colour, Moonglow, but you really don't need this colour. You can use Payne's Grey, you can use a mixture of Payne's Grey and indigo, or any kind of browny, blacky, grey colour you've got. Again, not being literal to the photo, just sort of squinting my eyes, indicating a rough kind of idea of a colour there. But it doesn't have to be exact with the photo or the scene that you're sitting in front of. And seeing as I've got Moonglow on my brush, I thought I'll just add a bit of the ground in as well underneath the town hall. Now at this stage, it does go through an ugly stage, the sketch, and you might be thinking to yourself, I'm not really liking how this is going, it's just looking a bit weird, but stick with it, because then as you begin to really, in my mind, I've got this image of a sculptor where getting to the point where they're sculpting things, you've got to get those big shapes in first, and then you start whittling it down and getting more and more details and shadows and depth and things like that. You start sculpting it and it starts looking better and better. So don't quit in the ugly stage, keep going with it. I've got a bit of foliage here. I'm just using green gold on here. And you'll notice that some of my colours are going to run together because everything's quite wet at the moment. It's another thing on this smooth paper. The watercolour takes a little bit longer to dry than on some of the other paper or some of the other sketchbooks that I've got. So I did have to wait a little bit for the paint to dry. The green is seeping into the colour of the town hall, but doesn't concern me at all, to be honest. A, it's not too obvious, it's not too much of a different colour, and B, it just adds to the loose nature of this sketch. So I've switched brush here, and I wanted to mix up just kind of a dull kind of blue, just to indicate the windows of this modern office block in the background below, in the background of this building. So I'm using a flat brush. This is a 1/2 inch flat brush, and it's just so I can get some defined shapes, really. If I used a round brush, then it would be harder to try and get these kind of flat, straight shapes of the windows. So I do really like having a flat brush around for these kinds of situations. And I personally find a 1/2 inch flat brush is the perfect size for the kind of sketching I do. And again, I am not being literal with what's in the photograph. I just want to indicate this building. I do not want to put any details into it. I just want to show it's there. I don't quite leave it at this though. I am going to show you in a little while what to do just to finish that building off, because at the moment it's a little abstract. Probably could leave it like that, but I did want to just add a little bit more to it just to make it a bit more obvious as to what it is. So that's coming later on when we get to the details stage. So at the moment it's looking all right, but now we need to get to that stage where we start to define things and we add some depth and some details and some more information. So I am using what I commonly refer to them as my secret weapons, which are not so secret, but I will tell anyone who cares to listen about these pens. These are Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens. I have the set of 6 grey shades, 3 warm, 3 cool. I don't think they sell them in that configuration anymore, so you might see them in a set of 8. And these are the brush pens, not the soft brush pens, which have SB written on them. These are just the B brush pens. And I just love using them for shadows. I use them in conjunction with watercolour, so just over the top, and just to add little shadow areas. I don't really like using them to cover large areas of tone or colour, just because they do have a transparency to them, so therefore it ends up being streaky and stuff. But the transparency that they have is exactly why they work perfectly over watercolour, because they do let the watercolour kind of shine through a bit rather than using something like an alcohol marker or something else like that. So I just really like using these pens for just small shadow details, maybe filling in some windows, just adding some shadows underneath ledges and stuff like that. So I do have a video on these pens called My Secret Weapons, I think, for adding contrast. But yeah, I do really, really love these pens for that particular use. But of course, you do not need those pens. You can just shade in the windows with a normal pen, a black brush pen, whatever you want, and you can add shadows under things with just your brush and watercolour. But these are just my very quick ways of adding controlled areas of shadow just in this pen form. So you can see it's already coming to life a bit more. It's coming off the page a bit more. We can see what's going on, just adding a bit more clarity and definition. And yeah, just giving it a bit more of a 3D kind of look. And again, just trailing off the lines on the right-hand side of the page, just to match with what's going on with the paint. Just filling in some shadows underneath the roof here and where these posts are. It's definitely given that building a bit more life, having those darker areas added. And now moving on to the post, which again, I'll just keep in shades of grey because that's what it looks like in the photo. And also I don't really want to be taking away from the main focus of our sketch, which is the town hall. This is just supplementary information, just a bit more storytelling, that we are in this kind of urban environment, and along with beautiful architecture, there are some more mundane elements of life going on as well. Okay, so now we're getting back to the building in the background, and I'm just using a grey watercolour pencil, but you can use just a normal pencil or a grey marker or whatever you have. And I'm just kind of giving the building a little bit of an outline. So it's really subtle, but it just gives the building a little more structure. And it just makes it a tiny bit more obvious that it is a building back there. But I didn't want to draw it in black ink because I didn't want to take away from the building in front of it. So this is an easy way just to keep things subtle, and it just helps emphasize the sense of depth in the scene. And to finish off with, I've just got a thicker fine liner, and I'm just going around and just seeing where I might want to thicken up some lines just to emphasize things, just to bring elements forward away from the background behind it. I don't do a great deal, to be honest. I think that this building is already nicely standing forward in front of that office building because of the way that we've drawn that and painted that. It's just a few bits and bobs here and there, maybe where some ledges are or some shadow areas, just kind of outlining some of the parts that I feel should have a bit more emphasis. So this is a 0.5 fine liner, by the way. And then I just, this is where we could get to the fiddling stage of the sketch. I just wanted to add a bit more darker green in the foliage in the front here, just to show a bit of shadow area, a bit more form and texture on that foliage. And I think to finish off here, I just added a bit of colour to the banners that are hanging on the town hall there. Massively simplified, just colouring in this one, this nice light green, and this other one red and black. And I'm just using Posca paint markers here, but again, you could use watercolour. You might have a nice opaque red, for example, that you can use, or you could even use colour pencils or watercolour pencils, or you can just leave them, it's up to you. But I just thought it would be a nice fun pop of colour just to add in these banners. I just think it is a nice opportunity just to get a couple of bright colours in. And I realised I could probably just about indicate that there's like a bit of red on the flag there, but it's so small, and again, we're being quite loose, so there's no need to try and draw the exact flag. It's kind of in the wind anyway, so you can't really see what's going on. And just adding some thicker lines to the speakers or the elements on this street lamp or street post. It is quite in the foreground of our picture, so adding thicker lines to it here and there is totally fine. And that's it, guys, to be honest. That would be how I would tackle a scene like this if I wanted to do something really quick and loose. And I think it captures the spirit of the scene, and especially choosing the elements that I wanted to draw really helped with how to simplify the scene. I decided I wanted to draw the town hall, but I only wanted to draw some of it. I really wanted to draw the office block behind it just to add a bit more context. And then I really wanted this street lamp in the foreground, again, just to help with depth and also composition. So it did leave me with this nice white space over on the right. So again, if I was doing like a travel journal, or if I was out sitting on the street, it might be a nice opportunity to add a bit of hand lettering to the side of your sketch. So hand lettering is not a specialty of mine by any stretch of the imagination, but it is quite fun to add in when you get the chance. If you'd like a closer look at hand lettering and lots of different examples and inspiration on how to get better at hand lettering, I do have a couple of videos over on my monthly membership that you can check out. The link is in the description below. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I hope it's giving you some ideas and some inspiration on how you can hit the streets with your sketchbook and draw something like this and record a scene like this in your sketchbook nice and quickly and nice and loosely. If you're not going out anytime soon, or if you're not at that point in your sketching journey, by all means, practice this kind of concept from a photo. It's really going to put you in good stead for when you do hit the streets with your sketchbook and you do want to sit down and draw something like this. It really doesn't hurt to practice from photographs. It's absolutely not the same feeling as sketching on location, and it's kind of not the same, but in the same breath, it just really doesn't hurt practicing your drawing and your watercolour skills and any other art skills that you want to try out. So hope this one's been useful. Do let me know if you have any questions at all. You can leave a comment down below, or you can email me, taria@urbansketchingworld.com, and I'll do my very best to help you out. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.